Okay, so I know I've been posting a lot about starting in the salon and all that, so I thought this would be a really good time to share my testimony. It's gonna be kind of long, so just warn you. But just how God got me to where I am now, and just His grace and His faithfulness through this whole process. So I started doing hair. I guess I first remember doing someone else's hair at that age, or when I was in like the 7th grade. By the 10th grade, I was charging for it. I remember so many nights literally being up to like 1 o'clock, like every night of the week. I don't know why my mom let me do it. She said, as long as your grades don't fall, you can do it. So I'd be sleeping class because I was up all night doing somebody's hair. Um, but so that's kind of where I got my start. Um, and uh, but I didn't. So I wanted to do hair and be a stylist, but at the time, I didn't see anyone who made it look like a career. It was always kind of like a side hustle type thing. So I was like, no, I'm gonna go to college. I went to college. By the time it was time for me to graduate, I hated what I was doing, but I was so close that I just finished. And I graduated from college in 2011. 2011 came. I started looking at salons for the first time. Not salons, I'm sorry, schools, cosmetology schools for the first time. So come up to Memphis. I went to college in Jonesboro, which is like an hour from Memphis. So I would drive up to Memphis, and I'm visiting all these schools, and I had to choose between going to cosmetology school or taking a job offer working for ministry. So I decided to take this job. At the time, it just seemed like an easier transition from college. So I took this job, and I married my husband like a year later. So we get married, and I'm like, okay, let's look again. So I guess this is 3 years later. Really, it seems like a short time, but 3 years later, we get married, and I look at cosmetology schools again. But at this time, the price turns me away. I'm like, they're not giving me any money because I've used all my grants for college, and I just cannot see myself paying $20,000 to go to school. So I dropped the idea. We get pregnant with our first son, our first year of marriage. And I knew once I had one, I was going to knock them all out. So I had my son in 2015, my daughter in 2017, and then a month ago, or 2 months ago, I had my son, Timothy. So um, I guess around 2018, I had been staying home with them, and I had some part-time jobs, and I started working for a ministry. I mean, not a ministry. Yeah, I guess it is a nonprofit organization. And because I was really in a place then where I was like, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing in my life? I know this is not it. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something else. So I started working for them. Great place. Should have been an awesome experience. The people worked there were awesome. The work they did was awesome. But I started having debilitating anxiety. I would go in the bathroom, I would cry, I would dread waking up in the morning. And this was something that was unlike me. And my husband was like, we gotta change something. So I'm always like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And one day we were on a date, and he said, Ebony, you know what you're supposed to do. You're just too afraid to do it, and I feel like you're being disobedient. Slap in the face, because at this time, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, oh, I want to go to cosmetology school, but there's no way he's gonna let me quit my job, and we got 2 kids at home, and add on this financial burden of going to school, and just the logistics of how we're gonna make that work with time. So I called my brother. He gassed me up like, hey, you can do it, you can do it. So I decided, the Holy Spirit really just put on my heart like, hey, this is the time. So I'm looking at schools in Memphis again. This is my third time looking within a period of like 7 or 8 years. I look at schools in Memphis again, and once again, the 20 plus $1,000 of debt. The older I get and the bigger my family gets, just seems like so much of a pressure. So I started looking at cities outside of Memphis, and I decided, oh, maybe I can transit. I found a school in Millington, Tennessee that was perfect for what I needed. The price was less than half. I went and met the instructor, the director, I got a good feeling from it, and so I decided to go there. So that was like in November. This was like a quick process at this point. I had a conversation with him in October, went to see the school in November, decided to start in January. So December comes and I find out that I'm pregnant. And I'm literally wailing, like on the ground, wailing in the hallway. God, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? Like I didn't do it to myself, but still, I thought that. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to go to school now, or I'm going to have to stop halfway, whatever. So a couple weeks pass, and we lose that baby. And at that time, I have so many conflicting emotions because I I didn't want to be pregnant, but then I started coming around to the idea of being pregnant, and I know that I don't want to sound insensitive because I know for a lot of people getting pregnant is not an easy thing, but this is just me being honest about where I was at the time. So we lose that baby, and I'm sad, but at the same time I'm kind of relieved. It was just a mix, like a weird mix of emotions. So I started school in January, and for the first time since we've been married, Artez and I, we really have to like teamwork as far as like picking the kids up and this and that. And I was so worried about that. But when I say he stepped up so much, I wouldn't say stepped up because he was already doing a lot, but he stepped in so much. And if it wasn't for him, I would not have been able to go to school. There were many days where he picked the kids up, he dropped them off every Saturday. The whole time I was in school, he kept them every single Saturday. He did not have a weekend off. So I really, really, really appreciate him for that. But so I go through school. September comes. I find out I'm pregnant again. This time I'm very excited. I want to have a baby. The timing seems right. And I'm at school one day and I go to the bathroom and I've lost this baby. So I'm like, God, I don't know what you're doing. But so we mourn that. And a month later, I'm finding I'm pregnant again with the baby that I have now, Timothy. Which was such a huge blessing. But I was so nervous. I didn't tell anybody for like halfway through the pregnancy. Literally nobody knew until I was like 20 weeks. Besides the people who are really, really close to me. So I get to the end of school. Coronavirus comes and it really pushes things back. But eventually I graduate. But one of the, I guess, a few big things I wanted to mention was just how God provided for us financially through this process. This was something that, on paper, it should not have worked. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at our family's finances on paper, to be able to add this much of a financial burden to our household, it shouldn't have worked. But God, we didn't really even feel it. We didn't take extra vacations. We didn't eat out as much. But when I say He provided the whole time, and times when things were getting low, just something would come up and we would have the money that we needed, you know. So I'm just really grateful for that, and just His faithfulness through that. But another thing, such a big blessing, is just the salon that I'm in now, and just how I ended up there. So then I'll tell this part and then I'll be done. But there's a client whose hair I did, and I cut her hair. So she went to another stylist to get a consultation for something. And she said, oh, this stylist, she really liked your cut, you know. And I was like, oh, great, thank you. She's like, you should follow her on Instagram. So I followed her, whatever. And I'm noticing the next day, I'm noticing her pictures up in our school. And so I'm looking at the picture, and my director, she's like, hey, do you know her? And I'm like, oh, I just recently saw her on Instagram. She's like, well, I'm judging at this event that she's throwing. Would you like to come? And I'm like, sure, I want to come, you know. So I just come and I sit in the back. I don't know anybody, but I know that this lady seems like someone who really is good at what she does, and I just wanna be around and kind of see how someone like this operates. So I come and I sit in the back. I stay a couple hours, introduce myself, and I leave. So I'm following her on Instagram, and she throws another event this for stylists. So I go, and the salon owner, so her and the salon owner that I work at now, they work together in the same salon. So the salon owner, she is teaching one of the classes that's for this stylist symposium thing. So she says, hey, I'm getting married in November, but in January, if anybody, if you want to be mentored, I'll be open to it. So January comes, I call, I'm nervous. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna shoot my shot, And I say, hey, I know you probably don't remember me, but if you are still open to mentoring someone, I would pay you for your time. She says, oh, yeah, I remember you. The crazy thing is I've been praying for God to send me someone who wants to learn. Would you be interested in working here? And so at this point, I'm about to fall off the bed. I'm like, Lord, you have got to be kidding me. So I'm like, sure, I want to work there, So we talk on the phone, and we have verbally committed that I would be working here. But coronavirus comes, and I told her one timeline, and it knocks it months off of the timeline that I originally stated. And I'm like, she gonna drop me, but she stayed patient with me the whole time. And when I say there is not a better place that I could be working, I can't think of a better place for me to work right now that's gonna set me up for where I'm gonna end up. To be working around people who are so humble, but also who love what they do. And that was important for me, just to be around people who really genuinely love the industry and love what they do, because that can be contagious. So anyways, that's my story. That's kind of how I ended up at the salon that I'm at. That's how I ended up graduating from cosmetology school at the age of 31. Was I 31? I was 30. I'm 31 now. How I ended up graduating from cosmetology school, how I ended up even going to cosmetology school. But I'm so grateful for God, and how in every single aspect of this, He has just shown Himself, I would say faithful, but faithful almost kind of has a tone of deserving in it. He was gracious. I did not deserve it. It's not something I asked for per se, or that He's not always faithful. He's always faithful. Even if this never worked out, He was faithful. But for Him to go above and beyond, He was gracious. He was just gracious to me. He was gracious to my household. So as I enter into this new season, there are times where I'm afraid. I'm the new girl on the block. Yes, I've been doing it for a long time, but I don't have the experience that they have. And what I have to keep reminding myself is, if He was there with you through this entire process, He is not going to leave you now. So I just want to be faithful to where I am. I want to treat people well. I want to learn. And I want to give Him the glory for it, because it's only because of Him that I'm here. So I hope that encouraged somebody. I know it was long, but that's just my story.